Kal Kadosh Boker Or. Masechet Ketubot Daf Kaftet Amud Aleph 29a1, new chapter, Perek Shelishi, the third chapter. Elu Ne'arot Sheyesh Lahem Knas. These are the girls that they have a knas if they are violated, which means that if somebody comes and violates one of these girls, so he has to pay to the father 50 shekel kesef. Okay? Abala mamzeret. Somebody has relations with a mamzeret. Ve'ala netina, which is the netina, which they come from the givonim, that they converted during the times of Yoshua bin Nun. Ve'ala kutit, or the kutit, which they went to Eretz Yisrael after the galut of the 10 tribes and they converted. So therefore, even though we are not allowed to come and to get married to any of these girls, the mamzeret, because it says lo yavo mamzer b'kel Hashem, the kutim, because we say that it's not a good conversion, right? So on and so forth. Still, if somebody comes and has relations with them, violates them, he has to pay kenas. He has to pay a penalty. Habala gioret. The same halacha applies if he has relations with a gioret or la shivuya or la shivcha. Shenitu shenidgam shadu pechuto imno shalosh shanim b'chad. Only if they came and they did this before 3 years old. Meaning, a girl that was a goya, but she converted before the age of 3. She has a knas. A girl that was a shivcha, that she was redeemed, right? She was liberated, before the age of 3. Or a girl that was taken in captivity, but she was redeemed before the age of 3. They have kenas. Why? Because we say that this is a betula, and therefore there's a kenas if somebody comes and violates her. Next, the Mishnah now is going to come and mention other girls that they also have knas, even though there's an isur of karet on them. Meaning, until now, there was an isur that a person not allowed to get married to them, whether it was a mamzeret, netina, kutit, v'chule v'chule. Now we're going to speak about girls where there's a karet for living with them. But if the guy comes and he lives with them, what happens? He pays a knas. What are those girls? Habalachuto. Somebody violates his sister. Alachot aviv, on his aunt. Achot imo, his aunt from the mother's side. Right? Alachot ishto, on the sister-in-law. Right? Val eshet achiv, or his brother's wife. Val eshet achi aviv, or on the wife of the uncle. Val anida, or on the nida. In any of these cases, even though there is going to be karet, because again, these are karets, but yesh lem kras. Shaf al pi shehem bekaret, because even though there's going to be karet, and bahem mitat bet din, there is no mitat bet din. So therefore, since there's no mitat bet din, the mitat bet din would have made them patur from paying because of the general concept of kimle b'derabba mineh. Kimle b'derabba mineh means that we always usually give the more stringent punishment. But that's only going to be if there's a death penalty plus monetary penalty. But if there's no death penalty from a bedin and it's only karet, so therefore they receive both. They receive the karet plus the monetary right? Yes.
One is from bedin nemala and one.
Ani ne'arot psulot. He says these are the ne'arot which are psulot. Itlu knas ksherot lo. Says 1 second. You're going to tell me then that these ne'arot psulot, which is mamzeret, netina, and kutit, these are women that you're not allowed to get married to. They're psulot, right? Now you're going to tell me they have knas. So the ksherot lo, right? What does that mean, right? So hachi kamer, this is what it means say. Elu ne'arot psulot sheyesh lehem knas. These are the ne'arot which are psulot. They have knas. Meaning like this. When you start the Mishnah, it says Elu ne'arot sheyesh lehem knas, and then it brings down psulot. Who are the psulot? Mamzeret, netina, v'kutit. Right? Now, 1 second. Now you're going to tell me then what? Then the kshirot, no? So what's going on? Obviously the kshirot get. So he says, no, you're right. You have to add in the word Elu ne'arot psulot sheyesh lehem knas. But the ne'ara that's kshira, for sure she has a knas. Understand? For sure. If somebody violates a regular Jewish girl, obviously there's a knas. Here the chidush is that even for the psulot they have knas. So they add in the word psulot. Elu ne'arot psulot sheyesh lehem knas. Okay, abala mamzeret v'lentina v'lakutudim. Na'ara'in kitalan lo. According to this, the Mishnah only said ne'arot. Only a na'ara gets a knas, not a ketana. Meaning, if somebody violates a girl that she's 11 and a half, she's not a na'ara. There's no knas. Only from 12 and onwards. So 12 and a half. Why? Because that's the na'ara. Na'ara in ketana lo. Right? Why? He comes and he says, Man Tana, who is this Tana? Yeah? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, says Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Rabbi Meir. It's Rabbi Meir. Titania, because we learned in a Braita, Ktana, Mibat Yom Echad Shatavi Shte Searot, Yesh La Mecher. Right? We learned in a Tosefta, a Ktana, that from Mibat Yom Echad, that Shatavi Shte Searot, from once she's 1 day old until she brings 2 pubic hairs, Yesh La Mecher, you could sell her as an Ama Ivriya. Ben La Knas, there's no Knas. But once she has 2 pubic hairs until she becomes a bogeret, yesh la knas, she has a knas, you cannot sell her anymore. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir used to say, whenever you could sell her, and knas. So that means whenever you could sell your daughter as an ama ivriya, there's no knas. But whenever there's a knas, and mecher, you can't sell her. Chachamim say no. Ktana mibat 3 shanim yom echad that shetibaged yesh la knas. So shitat chachamim that there is a knas. That means if somebody violates an 11-year-old girl, he also gets a knas according to chachamim, but not according to Rabbi Meir. But according to chachamim, yes. From once she's 3 years old until she becomes a bogeret. Says the Gemara, knas in mechelo. He says what? They only get a knas, but they can't sell. It's mefurash in the Torah that the father could sell his daughter as long as she's a ktana. So as says the Gemara, Eima, you have to say, Kafteta Mubet, 29b, Af knas bimkom mecher. Also knas bimkom mecher. That means also, both of them. Knas and mecher. You could sell her, and also you get her knas. So says the Gemara, Vehani ben knas aninu, is a mamzeret nitnina nekutit, they get knas? Why? Ikre kan, we should read here the pasuk, Velo tiye isha, when it says that the person comes and he violates a woman, he has to get married to her. Now there, veloti el isha, for him it has to be the wife, isha yalo. It's only if he can get married to her. Here, he can't get married to her. You understand why he can't get married to her? She's a mamzeret. She's a netina. She's a kutit. She's like a goya. You can't get married to her. So therefore, if a person comes and violates her, it's only just knas. It's knas plus veloti el isha. He has to stay married to her for the rest of his life. He can't do that. So Amar Shakish says to Shakish, you're right. Na'ara, ha na'ara. Do you know that it's written, right, by the ones, it's written, Kimtza ish na'ara betula. When a person's going to find a na'ara betula, because remember, there's only a knas if she's a betula. If she already fooled around, right, and now she's not a betula, the person doesn't pay a knas. You understand? There's no knas, there's no nothing. You understand? And it also says, V'natana isha shochev ma lavia na'ara. Here it says, ha na'ara is extra. Because it could have just said Lavia to her father. Why did it say Lavia ha na'ara? So here the word na'ara is extra, and ha, the hey, is also extra. Chad legufe. One is teaching us about the na'ara itself. I mean, if somebody comes and violates a na'ara, they get the knas. V'chad le'atu yechayave lavin. One of them is coming to include, one na'ara is coming to include chayave lavin. That even if it's a negative commandment, there's still going to be the knas. And one of them is going to come in to include the extra hey. So for one more time, it was written 3 times na'ara, because the first time it was written na'ara, second time it was written han na'ara. So the second time the na'ara was extra and the hey was extra. So it's like there's 3 different times written na'ara. So the first one was for itself, the second one was chayve lavin, third one chayve kritut. That means anybody that's chayav kritut, that was the achoto, the sister-in-law, the aunts, all these things, the karet. All the chayve lavin, the lavin is the mamzer, netina, vekutit, v'cholele, right? So all those things also get knas. Where do they learn it from? From the extra word na'ara. Papa comes and he says, we learn it from a different pasuk. Where do we learn it from? Betula, betulot, ha-betulot. Why? It says to do with mefateh. Mefateh is to seduce, not to violate. Remember, there's ones and mefateh. Ones is to violate. Mefateh is to seduce. So it says over there, v'chi yifateh ish betula. And it says, kesef yishkol, right? Kemoara betulot. So now here, right? It could have just said, kesef yishkol kemoha. And it says, ha betulot. So betula was extra, and ha betulot, the hey, is extra. So it's written like 3 times again. Betula. Chal legufa, one is it for her. one of them is going to be chayve lavin, one of them is going to be chayve klitut. Okay, so therefore, right, that's why again you have the same thing, but instead of from na'ara, you're learning it from betula. Okay, even though that this is written by mefateh, not by ones. The other one was written by ones. So says the Gemara, Rav Papa, my tama lo makir shakish. So why doesn't Rav Papa hold like shakish? Shakish gave a good one also. Na'ara, na'ara, ha-na'ara. Why did he learn it from betulot, ha-betulot? So how mi baile lech de Abaye? He needs like Abaye. The Rabbi Abaye says, ba'aleha umeta. What happens now if he has relations with her and then she dies before the gzar din? That means he dies. She dies before she's able to go to the bedin. Patur is patur from knas. Shneimar venatan la'avi anara velo la'avi meta. When you say la'avi anara, it means that she has to be alive now, because if she already dies in between, so now she's la'avi meta. So therefore, what happens? So then he gets a death penalty anyway. So that's okay. Right? So now before he was only chayav a knas, now he gets also death penalty. Okay. So now what happens? So therefore it's so important to understand, right, that what happens, that we learn from that pasuk that it has to be lavi anara velo lavi meta. So fine. So now we understand. Shakish, my tama lo makra. So why doesn't Shakish learn like Rav Papa? So he says, Omi baile legzira shava. He needs it for a gzira shava. The time was learned in a braita. Kesef yishkol kemoara betulot. Shie ze kemoara betulot. Umoara betulot. What does that mean? The kesef which is brought down, the money which is brought down by the mora betulot, by mefateh, by mora betulot, should be the same as by the ones. And the same as the ones should be like mora betulot, which means it's the same amount of money. Meaning just like somebody comes and he violates a woman, or he's going to come and seduce some woman, it's the same amount of money by both ways. He has to pay, right? Which is going to be the matayim zuz, right? This is what he has to pay. The Shakish Nami, the Shakish also, he also holds of a bay. So 1 second, but what does each one do? Because each one holds of each other, but they're learning from different places. So now Resh Akish, he needs Abaye. Abaye says, so if it's extra, what are you making Zera Shava for? And if Rav Papa, he needs it for what we just said now, the Zera Shava to do with the value of the Ketubah or the value of the Knas. So therefore, what does he do with it? Elashita Krae Ktive. But rather, there's 6 psukim written in the Torah. Okay? There's 6. So it says, Nara, ha-na'ara, betula, ha-betulot. So therefore you say, Nara, nara, ha-na'ara, betula, betulot, ha-betulot. Right? So one more time, that means basically we're putting both psukim together. And now we're saying like this. Trei legufayhu. Both of them, you need it, right, for themselves. So you need one for the na'ara, that she gets knas, and one for the betula, that she gets kas. So that's called legufeh, for itself. Meaning not to learn anything else from it, but rather for itself. Right? That's what we do the first one. Next, Chad, one of them is for Abaye, for the Gzira Shava. One of them is for Abaye, which is Lavia Nara velo Lavia Meta, for the father of the one that's alive and not the one that died. One of them is for the Gzira Shava, that Ones and Mefateh have to be the 50 shekel kesef, which is the same amount. Ayatru letrei, so now you have 2 extra. One of them is for Chayve Lavin, one of them is Chayve Klitut. So basically what I just did now was by combining them both together, now I learn each one for something separate. Okay, so now it comes out actually beautiful. Ulapuke ma'itana, and to exclude from this Tana, the Tanya we learned to the Braita, Velot JELI Isha. What does it mean, Velot JELI Isha? Shimon HaTimni says, Isha sheyesh ba'havaya, only a woman that you could actually get married to her. That Kiddushin is tofsim, right? Because Isha sheyesh ba'havaya, havaya is to actually get married to her. Rabbi Shimon ben Atzia Omer, Shimon ben Atzia, Isha ruya lekaima, a woman that he's allowed to stay married to her. That means there's not, but if somebody's going to come and be honest and Isha, which is prohibited to him, he's not chayav a knas according to this shita. So it comes out, obviously, our Mishnah is not like Shimon HaTimni, right? And not like Rabbi Shimon ben Atzia. Because according to both of their shitot, a person only gets a knas if he could get married to the woman or if he could stay with the woman. So therefore, according to both of them, our Mishnah doesn't apply. Because our Mishnah, a person cannot get married to, whether it's chayve klitut, it's not chal. And even if it's a mamzeret, the kiddushin is chal, he can't stay with her. Remember, what was the difference between klitut and lav? By a chayve lavin, the kiddushin is chal. Right? The kiddushin is chal. Somebody goes to a mamzeret and he says, he's married to her, but he doesn't stay with her. He's not allowed to stay with her. That means the kiddushin is chal, but he cannot stay with her. Isha reuya lo, haisha shereuya lekayema, that he could stay married to her. By chayve klitut, if this person comes and he goes to his sister, to his aunt, to whoever it is, and he says, it's klum, the rien. Lama. Why? because the kiddushin are not chal and chayve kritut. So there's a difference between chayve kritut and chayve lavin. So here what we're trying to learn is that whether it's according to Shitav Rav Shimon ben Asya or Shimon Atimni, our Mishnah is not going like that. Because according to these two opinions, you're not chayav a knas, not in chayve lavin and not in chayve kritut. Our Mishnah said that you are chayav a knas in those two cases. My benaihu, what's the difference between them then? Amar bizera, says a bizera, mamzeret unetina ike benaihu. The difference between them is mamzeret and netina. Leman da'amar, according to the man da'amar, which is Shimon Atimni, yesh ba'avaya, hainami yesh ba'avaya. So they have avaya. What does that mean? That at the end of the day, you could get married to them. Why? Because kiddushim are tofsim by chayve lavin. But according to the man da'amar, reuya lekaima, she's not a mamzeret netina, it's not reuya lekaima. So therefore, just like what we mentioned before, right? Again, a mamzeret netina vekutit, there's no kiddush, the kiddushim is tofsim, but there's no, you are not allowed to stay married to them. So therefore, that's what he's saying over here. Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbi Akiva, that he says, "En tofsim kiddushim, en kiddushim tofsim chayve lavin." My benel. According to Rabbi Akiva, what are you going to say? Because according to Rabbi Akiva, we learned this in Yevamot, if you remember. We learned according to Rabbi Akiva, even by chayve lavin, it's not tofsim kiddushim. So if a person comes to somebody that's a lav and he tries to do kiddushin, it's not tofes. So says the Gemara, the difference between them is almana to the Kohen Gadol, kirvisima lekirvisima. The time was learned to write Rabbi Omer Rabbi says, minakol oser Rabbi Akiva mamzerim. Do you know that Rabbi Akiva says that everybody's going to become mamzerim if it's going to be, even for the chayve lavin and all these other things, they're all going to be mamzerim. Chutz, except for an almana to a Kohen Gadol. Because the Torah says, lo yikach velo yichalel. Chilunin hu oseh, it only makes a halal, but it doesn't make mamzerim. So since it only makes a halal and not mamzerim, if an almanach gets married to a Kohen Gadol, so therefore the children become halalim, they do not become mamzerim. But other than that, according to Rabbi Akiva, they always become mamzerim. Or Rabbi Yeshivav, according to Rabbi Yeshivav, that he says, "Bo v'nitzvah Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef." We'll go and we're going to scream against Rabbi Akiva ben Yosef. Shaya Omer, they used to say Kol Shem B'Abi Yisrael. Anytime that you don't have a B'Abi Yisrael, Avla mamzer, the child is going to be a mamzer. My benayu, what's the difference between them? And so the Gemara, Ika benayu, the difference between them is going to be what? So the difference between them, because again, according to Akiva ben Yosef, he used to say that as long as there's no biyah for Yisrael, the child is mamzer. So what's the difference? So he comes and he says, Hayaveh aseh, a positive commandment, or a mitzri v'adomi, which means when you have a woman that she's a mitzri or adomit, she's not a surah unless, because it's a lav which is coming from an aseh. It's a negative commandment that comes from a positive commandment, which is like a positive commandment, because it says in a pasuk, Dor shlishi yavo lahem bikal Hashem, that only the third generation can they come and get married to Kal Hashem. So it's mashma from here that there are surah lavo bekal until the third generation. So Rabbi Shimon ben Asya is not going to be chayav a knas because he can't stay married to him. But according to Rabbi Akiva, the kiddushim are tofsim, since the yisur is only going to be a positive commandment, so therefore he's going to be chayav a knas according to Shimon Atimni, because there is havaya. A person could actually get married to them.